Thank you all for coming. Move this down a little bit. Is that good, Kevin? We ready to go? And I want to welcome everybody who's joining us online. My name is Wiley Cash. I have a new title here at UNC Asheville. I'm the Executive Director of the Literary Arts.
Yay!
So I have an office suite now. There's really no change. It's just a longer title. I still have to pay for parking. There's no change at all. But every semester I choose a text for the Common Word Community Read, and I organize 3 events. And this fall, the fall of 2023, that text is I Came as a Shadow, the autobiography of Coach John Thompson, who spent his collegiate career coaching collegiate career at Georgetown University and had an incredible amount of success and was a groundbreaking, record-breaking coach in many ways. This is the best book on leadership I think I've ever read, and I learned so much, not only about basketball, a sport that I really love, but also about higher education and politics and cultural moments and how all of these things coalesce very often on the shoulders of young people. And so we'll talk about some of those things tonight with this group of wonderful young people. I want to talk about a few things before I introduce tonight's student athletes. I want to share a little bit about the events that we have upcoming during this series. On Thursday, October 26th at 7 p.m., right here in the Reuter Center, we'll be hosting Dr. Adam Rothman. He's a history professor at Georgetown University. And Dr. Rothman is going to be discussing the 272 enslaved people that Georgetown University sold in 1838 to keep the doors open at the university. And this is something that John Thompson mentions in his autobiography. He says, many of these people were from Prince George's County. That's where my father's people are from. So there is a very good chance that my ancestors were sold to fund the university that now employs me. And so you can imagine the very complicated emotions he had approaching that job, and also the very complicated and heavy situation he found himself up against in taking that job way back in 1972. So that will be October 26th, Dr. Adam Rothman. He'll be here discussing the descendants, the lives of the people who descend from those 272. And then on November 16th, also a Thursday evening, right here, also at 7 p.m., I'll be in conversation with former All-Star and 14-year NBA veteran Eric "Sleepy" Floyd, who is still the all-time leading scorer in the history of Georgetown University. We got to keep in mind that someone named Allen Iverson played there as well, and so did Patrick Ewing, but Eric "Sleepy" Floyd is still the leading scorer. He still holds some NBA records for most points scored in a quarter, and I think most points scored in a half as well. John Thompson, in his autobiography, writes that Sleepy Floyd was such a phenomenal scorer that if he missed shots, he would pull Coach Thompson aside and in complete seriousness say, "Coach, something's wrong with these rims." And he would mean it. It wasn't bluster. He really believed if he missed shots, it was the rims. So tonight we are joined by 6 student athletes from a range of sports who represent the best of UNC Asheville, and I mean that wholeheartedly. For those of you who might not be, faculty or administrators, you might not know that our student athletes here at UNC Asheville are legitimately the best of what our university has to offer in many, many ways. And it is an absolute joy to be with these young people tonight. And I know we've got some coaches and teammates both in the audience and joining us virtually. And I know they're as proud of them as we are. We're going to talk about a range of issues. And I want to start with Connor Bahan, right? Did I pronounce your last name correctly? Connor is from Dublin, South Carolina. It's about 3 hours from here, just south of Greenville. He's from Dublin, Ireland. He's a junior on the men's soccer team. He's an environmental science major with a focus on earth science. And Connor, I want to know, how did you find your way to Asheville from Dublin? And how are college sports different in Ireland than they are here?
Well, hello everyone, I'm Connor. Well, I ended up here about 3.5 years ago during COVID, the August 2020. A couple of, I'd say, 5 months before that, a coach here, the assistant coach, his name was Ross Fitzpatrick. He was from Ireland himself, County Waterford, and he reached out to me because I'd been looking to come over to the US to find myself in university playing college soccer. I had sort of hit a block at home where I was looking for something new, looking to get somewhere new and a new challenge, and the opportunity came up, and I spoke with Ross there at the time, and then Mick Giordano, obviously the head men's soccer coach here, he then called me and was basically sold the UNC Asheville to me, and it was also his first year at the time, and it was going to be his first full season coaching the team, as he'd only got the job in the spring, and obviously then everyone was sent home with COVID and stuff. So it was a challenge that I really wanted to take on, because obviously I had looked at the program in the past and we hadn't done so well, and it was something that I was hemming and hawing over whether I should take the challenge. But when I spoke to Mick, he put full confidence in me. He really made me feel like I was wanted, and I ended up looking into the area a lot more, the school, and that's pretty much how I ended up here. I took the opportunity, and yes, my first year went well, and maybe a couple of 2 years after that didn't go great, but now it's starting to pay dividends just in the process that it was, and yeah, I really like it here. So
great. Well, tell us a little bit about, you talked about how Ross had the idea to look back home to Ireland for soccer players. What is recruiting like in Ireland? If you had been recruited by a university or college in Ireland, how is it different than the States?
So college sports isn't really a thing in Ireland. Like you can play for your college when you get there, but they don't really recruit like they do over here. Like I know myself, for college at home I was possibly looking to go to, they were going to give me a small amount of money as a scholarship to go to the school, but on top of that I would have been playing club soccer, which is much more important over there to everyone. College sports, it's sort of just a thing that you join when you go to college at home. It's not really something that you grow up when you're like, oh, I want to go play college sports like it is over here. And that was something that I only really heard of college sports because of someone from my area who went over to the US to play for an NAIA school in soccer. So that's how I ended up hearing about college sports over here. But I grew up playing for a club, and that's all it really was. There was never a thought of me going to play sport in college or anything. But it's massively different. Like even outside, we were speaking about it there. We were speaking about like college football, college basketball over here, where people are selling out stadiums for everything. Where at home, you go to a college sport of any sort, you're lucky to get 100 people there watching it. Everything's much more focused around like sort of club sports. So
sounds like literary events.
yeah. So.
But I want to go next to you, Anna. You're from Asheville, and I'm going to ask you in a moment what's it like to be recruited by your hometown team. We just heard Connor travel all the way from Ireland, and I guess you traveled from a different part of the city. Anna Elkins was born and raised in Asheville. She plays volleyball for UNCA. She's double majoring in political science and international studies, which has led her to study abroad twice, once in Spain and once in Japan. And after graduation, she'd like to work in local or state politics. So what was it like being recruited by your hometown team? Were you aware of the program at UNC Asheville when they came calling or reached out to you? What was that experience like?
Yeah, so my experience was obviously pretty different from Connor's because I grew up around UNC Asheville. I think my first time on campus was probably in the first or second grade because we got to do discovery programs here, so I got to take a course in magic on campus over the summer.
And that sold you. You were like, I am going to college there.
I actually I went to my very first volleyball practice at UNCA. The club that I grew up playing for and that taught me how to play was Biltmore Volleyball Association, BVA. And so I grew up playing in the same gym that I now compete in as a college student. And I definitely did not intend on coming to college here, just because going to school in my hometown is, I think a lot of people think college is a way to explore the world and really put themselves out of their comfort zone. And I felt the same way. All of the schools that I was looking at in high school were in California or New York City or Florida, and so I had never intended to come here, but I was offered a scholarship my junior year to come play for Asheville, and at the time I was like, no way am I going to stay in my
parents were like, yes.
And I was so set on going so far away from home, and then I got to the point where I didn't really even want to play volleyball anymore. I really wanted to focus on academics. I really wanted to go to Columbia University up in New York, or Pomona College out in California. And then I had a season-ending injury my senior year after having an undefeated season. And I realized then that I was not ready to stop playing, and that the sport meant a lot more to me than I had assumed it had whenever I was in the middle of it. So then I called back up the coaches here and I was like, I know it's been like a year. Is there any way that you still have a scholarship for me? Like, I would love to come play for you guys, because I knew at that point, I had other schools that were offering me, but also Asheville was the only place that seemed to prioritize what I wanted to prioritize, which was academics, and I knew I wanted to study abroad, and there aren't many Division I programs that will let their student athletes go abroad. So I told my coaches that was a real priority for me, and then I've been able to do it twice.
That's so interesting. You stayed in town to go out into the world. That's an amazing story. Mallory, we were talking about your major out in the lobby, accounting, and I'm no mathematics whiz, and I'm not even very good at keeping a checkbook or a budget. So I imagine that accounting is a pretty difficult major, and I'm going to ask you about that in just a moment. But Mallory Bruce is a junior from Greenville, South Carolina. She plays on the women's basketball team, and as I said, she is majoring in accounting. So Mallory, can you talk a little bit about those academic pressures that Anna mentioned a little bit? The priorities are perhaps maybe a little different here than they might be at some other universities, or the expectations. So can you talk about the pressures of being a student athlete with an emphasis on the student?
Hi everyone, I'm Mallory. Like he said, I am an accounting major. I actually didn't come to school to be an accounting major. I actually had to take an accounting class for a business degree, and I ended up falling in love with it. Of course,
no one's ever said that. I fell in love with accounting. You heard it here first.
Right, which my parents were like, oh, that's so good. You should really try to go and do that. They were really supporting me through that decision, but I knew at the point it was going to get harder and more difficult. And being a freshman, I went through struggles on and off the court, but now that I look at it from this perspective, I'm glad I went through those challenges and struggles, like balancing schoolwork and also playing basketball.
Can you talk a little bit about the day? You said that tomorrow you'll get up at 6, and then can you talk about what your day looks like balancing the demands of basketball and the demands of the classroom?
Okay, so usually we have either practice and weights early in the morning, and then we'll have like a little bit of downtime, which I have since accounting classes here are offered later in the day, just because how far I am into the degree now. So I usually do that. I have to get up extra shots, go get treatment and rehab, like always, at least like 2 times a week, 3 times a week, balance out doing my homework, and just then also going to class late and then coming back home and then getting ready to like settle down, but also doing more studying and homework since my degree takes it's a little bit of a chunk of my day. But I all love it. It's all great. I would not change it for anything.
We were talking about how she'll go to class after getting up at 6 to get up shots or hit the weights, and her classmates say, "Oh, I'm so tired." And she's like, "Yeah, bet you are. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I bet you're exhausted. Had to get to the calf before lunch was over. That was training. Sarah, I want to ask you a question next, and I'm going to introduce you after I tell you what that is. Sarah, in the introduction to his autobiography, Coach Thompson writes, "I always planned to be a teacher, not a basketball coach." And I thought that was really interesting, his backgrounds in education and working with young people. He said, "I used basketball as an instrument to teach. My classroom was the court." Can you share with us a lesson that you learned on the court, perhaps in a practice or in a game, or from one of your coaches, that didn't end up being about basketball? And while you think about that, that might be a tough question. While you think about that, I want to say a few words about you. Sarah Menace is a redshirt senior from Riverdale, Maryland, where she was heralded as one of the top rebounders and shot blockers in the country. She transferred to UNC Asheville from the University of Virginia, where she was named to the All-ACC Academic Honor Roll. So can you talk about some lessons you learned on the court that ended up maybe not being about basketball?
Yes, definitely. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. It's a lot of lessons I think I've learned on the court that have translated outside to the real world. But I think a big lesson that I've learned on the court is communication. Everyone knows that communication isn't just verbal, it's physical too, body language. And I think coming up and actually like reading the book, it's so funny. I'm from PG County as well, so it's like I had a connection to that. But coming up, playing the sport, like you always have like a lot of aggression, a passion, but I had to differentiate like, communication, how to communicate with my teammates, how to communicate with my coaches, like just how to navigate the world. And then my coach will always say like, you're gonna have to put those skills to use in the real world. So I think I was like in 11th grade and I had to like do a group project. And you always do group projects, but this group project, it was just super stressful. Like everyone, we were just from different backgrounds, there was a lot going on. And it was the middle of the season and no one was like just getting across in the group chat. We just wasn't getting off well. And I'm the type of person that would usually like just sit back and let it play out. But this is my grade, like we gotta get this project done, So I was just like, I don't know, I guess I'm just have to really like be that communicative leader that my coach has always pushed me to be. And then ever since then, I think it really opened up my eyes that, basketball is just a lot more than you would really ever know. And I know it sounds like cliche to think, but like I was a 16, 17-year-old girl, like I didn't really see it that way. So I'm very grateful for those lessons.
Oh, that's great. That's a great answer. My next question is for you, Greg. You came to us from the transfer portal from NC State, and I want to ask you a little bit about that. But before I do, Greg Grant graduated from NC State last year with a degree in business administration. At UNC Asheville, he's studying health and wellness. He plays on the men's basketball team and is from Fayetteville, North Carolina. And after graduation, he wants to pursue a professional career in basketball, and afterwards, he wants to work in the sports apparel and equipment industry. Greg, the transfer portal is still so new to so many of us, and especially people outside the ranks of college athletics, where we might just hear about it on the radio, or we might, see it as kind of a draft system, amateur draft system. But as someone who's been part of the portal, can you talk about the good and the bad of it and the stress of it and what it's like to be a redshirt senior and come to a place like UNC Asheville?
So I would first talk about the good. A lot of times in college, you coming up as a good basketball player, you have a lot of schools that are going to reach out to you. You have a lot of people that are trying to sell you. With you and the help of your family, you kind of try to figure out the pros and cons to each university and how they separate themselves from each other. Coming out of high school, I finished with 32 divisional offers. So trying to decipher from 30 schools was hard because there was definitely appealing things from a lot of schools. But I actually entered the transfer portal twice. This is my third destination. I was at I was in Providence, Rhode Island for 2 years, and I transferred to NC State. But honestly, the transfer portal has kind of been a blessing for me. Initially I thought I made a good decision going to Providence, and I don't regret any decision I've ever made because I'm a believer in everything happening for a reason. But it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and the transfer portal allowed me an opportunity to go and explore and honestly come back home. I had some family struggles going on in my first 2 years in college, and my mom was a big driving force in me going all the way to Rhode Island from North Carolina, and I lost her during that time in Providence. And I didn't realize how much that I was gonna miss my family and lean on my family until I got so far away from them. So honestly, just grieving and my family only seeing me play one time in 2 years weighed on me. So the transfer portal allowed me the opportunity to go back to North Carolina, play in front of friends, family, and just be more comfortable. I have 5 sisters, and I have nieces and nephews being born, going through these pivotal years, these baby years, and I was missing out on that time. So the transfer portal gave me an opportunity to just go be back at home and have a stronger support system around me. And at my next destination at NC State, again, it seemed a little bit better than what it was when I got there. But it's okay. It's life, and everything we go through in life just honestly just builds us up, and it's character building. And you just learn from your experiences. So I don't regret that decision either, because I had a great time in Raleigh. I made a lot of great relationships in Raleigh. I have a bachelor's degree from NC State, so. But it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, so I was blessed with the opportunity to still have 2 more years of eligibility to play basketball. So I entered the transfer portal again, hoping the third time was the charm. And big shout out to Woody Taylor, Mike Morrell. They were one of the first schools to reach out to me when I got into the transfer portal, and they just sold me on family, people that were just wanted to get the best out of me, and I've been here since June, and I think that I made a great decision. We haven't played a basketball game for them yet, but just the amount of they poured into me a lot only in these first couple of months, and at first I was a little standoffish about it because it felt like it was too good to be true. But the more that time I spent around them, the more time I spent around the Asheville community, I realized that what they were telling me when they were recruiting me, it wasn't for fake. It was just them truly just wanted me to be a part of their family. And I don't believe that there's a lot of bad things about the transfer portal. I think that people come together and they make relationships sometimes, but it just doesn't work at some points. And one side may want one thing and the coaching staff may want another. I think the worst thing about the transfer portal might be that some guys get stuck in the transfer portal. Some guys try to leave their situations, and then there's not another situation for them to come to. I think that it's changed college basketball. I mean, depending on who you talk to, it might be a good thing or a bad thing. But for me, it's just allowed me an opportunity to keep playing basketball and just be around some genuine people that are just want to help me. And I'm truly appreciative for it.
I'm so sorry about your mom. That's tough, man. I'm really sorry. And John Thompson also played at Providence. And his story wasn't so different from yours. His parents were down in Washington, D.C., and I think they saw him play 1 game in 4 years at Providence, and they won the national championship while he was there, and I don't think his parents saw that. I'm wondering, I might ask this a little bit later, but I would like to know about the transfer portal for maybe all of you, and I'll ask all of you later. Nice, Sarah, you came through the portal as well, right? If you think it gives you more agency as a player, more ability to call your own shots, which is something that players haven't had as much ability to call their own shots in the past. But before I ask that, I want to introduce Anna Doan from Jackson, Michigan. Anna, Coach Thompson writes about some really powerful and successful mentors that he had. People like Red Auerbach. Throughout his life, Red Auerbach was very talkative and was kind of in John Thompson's ear a lot, giving him advice. And then he had friends like Dean Smith and colleagues like Bill Russell who spoke more with their actions. And I'm wondering if you can talk about one mentor in particular who spoke with their actions or with their words or with their presence, and I'm gonna let you think about that for a moment. But Anna is from Jackson, Michigan. As I said, she plays on the women's soccer team. She majors in environmental studies with a concentration in management and policy and a minor in legal studies. Her plans after college are to go to law school and study environmental law or to work on policy formation and revision with companies or the government. So Anna, can you tell us about a mentor that was particularly present in your life and effective in your life?
Yeah, that's a very good question, by the way. I would have to say my club coach from back home. Ever since I started playing soccer, he really taught me just like how to grind it out, basically. Like, I came from a small town and things aren't easy there. You get to see a lot of, players from Ann Arbor and Detroit get picked up by these big Division I schools, and for me that was hard because I knew I could do that, but obviously I didn't get the looks at the time, so he really just inspired me to keep going, and he knew that I would make it someday, and I did, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, I'm just really fortunate to get the opportunity to be coached by him, and so he coached me from like ages probably 14 until I graduated. So that was really special, and we were building a program, and like we are now, and so I really learned how to start from the bottom basically, and year like when I was age 14, we were trying to win the state cup, didn't happen, and then throughout my years of high school, like every year we would try again, and my senior year of high school we finally did it, and so we were all so happy, and we saw our hard work paid off. So yeah, he taught me a lot of hard work.
How did he do it? Did he just pull you aside and say, "Hey Anna, I know the recruiters are out there. This might not happen at University of Michigan. It might happen somewhere else, and don't take it hard. Be patient. Let the process work itself out." What did he do?
I would say he probably told me to be patient, and he knew my time was coming, and I was getting a little bit anxious, but he had faith in me, so I think that was promising. And yeah, if that answers your question.
It does. So I have a question for all of you now, and we'll start with Connor and move down to Mallory. What is, I imagine, we all have different challenges in our lives. I have 2 kids, 8 and 7. I have friends who don't have kids. And they're like, "Hey, do you want to do so-and-so?" And I just want to scream, "I've got children. Why are you even asking me if I want to do that? Of course I want to do that. Can I? Should I?" Those are different answers, right? What is something that you would like to have a t-shirt made as a student athlete that you could just not have to say over and over? Just things that come up in your daily life where your friends are like, "Hey man, do you want to go to New Orleans this weekend?" And you're like, "Dude, why would you ask me that?" Of course I want, I imagine that the challenges y'all face are different than the students who are only going to class. Maybe they have jobs, maybe they don't. What kind of challenges do you feel are particular to your experience that other people may not understand?
I guess for myself, I guess it's having to put your best foot forward each day. I know obviously everyone has their own difficulties each day, but there's no especially during season, there's no time to just sit back and think, I have a day to myself and not think about soccer or basketball or volleyball. It's a funny thing that I was even asked the other day by one of my friends at the school who's not an athlete. Was like, "Oh, so what are you gonna do over fall break?" And I was like, "I'm here. I'm up at 7:15 for film in the morning, and then I have practice after that, and then lift after that." And it's especially in season, it's just a constant cycle of having to put your best foot forward each day, and it's and we constantly get reminded that by our coach as well. So I would probably say no off days is probably something that would put it across. And as much as but even obviously you get you get given your off day each week. That's mandatory by the NCAA, but I don't know. We got an off day there during, I think it was about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, and we had Georgia Southern away, and it was like a 5-hour bus trip back, and we have to play them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Southern Georgia, because the NCAA say if you get back past 12, it's not considered an off day. So there's just things like that. So that's probably what I would say, is that there's just no time for it.
Yeah. So a 2 p.m. outdoor game in South Georgia is better than getting back after midnight. It's healthier too, right?
Yeah.
Easier on your body, easier on your constitution. So no off day sounds just like being a parent. We're pretty much the same person, Connor. Anna, what about you? What is something that you find yourself constantly going back to or thinking about?
Can we skip me?
Is it bad?
No, it's not bad.
You want to scream, get off my back? What about you, Anna?
I would say my mind just immediately went to sleep, because I think that so for me in season, I have weights that I have to leave around 7 a.m. from my apartment 2 days a week, and then practice starts at 6 a.m. or 6:30. So I'm leaving my apartment at like 5 a.m., 5:30. And so if I'm not going to bed at like 9 or 10 p.m., then like the next day my body's not gonna be able to function. So just kind of like treating my body like a machine that I have to take good care of, I think is something that a lot of people don't understand. Like my little sister goes to school here, and she's always like, it'll hit like 9 p.m. and she's like, hey, do you want to come over and watch a movie? I'm like, no. I'm going to bed in 3 minutes.
I'm brushing my teeth right now. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think just living on a very different schedule than a lot of other people.
Sure, yeah. What about you, Greg? What's one thing that you feel is different in your experience than maybe somebody else's, one of your peers?
I would honestly just say our social lives, because we have priorities. A lot of us, like you've already heard, film, live, practice in the morning, and then you're straight to class, and then sometimes you have other athletic obligations after class. You might have community service, or you might have more film, or team bonding. I think that our social life suffers a little bit, because we're in college, obviously, so there's things that go on in college that
Tell us every one of them.
What we do, I feel, is just very demanding, and when we're finally finished with all of our obligations to our sport, that is our time to study, or that's our time to do homework, or do that project that we have. It's not that as soon as we get done with class, we can go home and start studying and get that done by 5, 6 o'clock. We're probably getting home around 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and then you start your work. By the time you're done with your work, you probably need to go to bed, because if you're like me, I have 8 a.m. Monday through Friday. So if I really truly want to get 8 hours of sleep, I gotta go to bed at 11 to wake up at 7. And I am kind of old. I'm 22, but who wants to go to bed at 11 o'clock every single day? So there's some things that I just might have to miss out on, and it's okay. It's just I think to be successful, you have to make sacrifices, and I think that's just life. But I definitely miss out on a lot of things.
And I'm wondering also, hearing you talk, Greg, and Nicera, you mentioned group projects. Sometimes, and I require this of my students, I want you all to go to 3 events this semester. I want you to go to 3 cultural events or 3 readings. And you're like, oh, those are always at game time, or those are always or you got to do this group project, and the group gets together and they're like laying out 5 times, and you can't meet at any of those times. What is that like, Nicera? I mean, you talked about your group project, but what is the challenge of you can answer the question about what's the hard thing that stands out in your mind, but what is the challenge of having all this academic expectation put in places that are already full, like chunks of time that are already claimed?
I think just like you heard, all the times are taken up, but I think for me personally, someone who still likes to get work done in their free time, I think that's where the bigger challenge comes in, from knowing when you need rest, or knowing when you really need to get to it. Because I remember last spring semester I got a job, and it was my first real adult job, and I'll just say I finally get it. I finally understand from having that job, like this is no joke. But just from going there, I would like work the night shift. So then after night shift, I would get a couple hours and go to practice or running or something, and then have to go to class and then I was realizing like your free time, you're still working, like, you know. So I just think that, I don't know, for me personally, it kind of, you know, brings me joy to keep working because I like, you know, being able to take care of myself. But I just think, like what you were saying about the put on the shirt thing, I think my shirt would just probably be blank.
You got nothing to offer.
Yeah, I don't, but, you know, I still want to, you know, show up for my friends and family in, you know, certain ways that I can, but they just may be different than other people show up, you know, like just being able to prioritize what I can do for this person on this day or what I can do, because, you know, as everyone said, like Greg said, everything's demanding, we're being demanded a lot, but one thing I've had to learn over the years that, you know, my body and my spiritual self, like it demands stuff as well, so I think just trying to find that balance, but my shirt would be blank.
I like what you said about when you have those moments of free time, they're not really free time because you're having to do your schoolwork. And even on your days off, Connor, which you mentioned, I mean, I'm not trying to get you in trouble with Mac or anybody else, but you have to think about the game. You got to think about game plan. You might be thinking about the film you saw. You might jump online and look at a game of opponents. There's not really any days off, really, in the season especially. You know, it's always on your mind. Mallory, what about you? What is one thing that you feel like you could say or make clear or point out?
On my shirt, I would put a smiley face, purely because someone like me, I've dealt a lot with like mental health within like my sport basketball, because my identity has been with basketball my whole life. So, you know, have a bad practice, I go home doing my homework, thinking about my bad practice, or, you know, just getting on myself really hard, and my coaches have helped me a lot with that, and also my teammates. But just going to class sometimes and not really having the best expression on my face, but wanting to learn. And in my accounting class, we have like 8 people, and we all pretty much take all the classes together. So they'll be like, Mallory, you had practice today? And I'll be like, yeah. And then they'll, you know, like they didn't know, because I became friends with all of them, even though they don't play sports. But I would just say that's one of my biggest challenges, is finding myself outside of my sport and being able to identify with like who I am without basketball. But just wanting to put on a smile some days when I'm really forcing myself and I don't really want to.
Is that something that all of you think about? And I'll ask you, Mallory, is that something you think about when you leave UNC Asheville and you move into accounting? What is that life going to be like?
Yeah, that's something that's always been on my mind. Just also wanting to like stay within the sport, but also just not knowing like what really to do like with all of my free time, what we were talking about, and what I'm going to do. Like I go to an accounting job, they don't really care that I played basketball. Like the other accounting people, they probably just went to normal school. So yeah, it is something I think about constantly, but also just like thinking about my mental health and doing meditation and stuff like that before games, after games, has really helped me stay true to myself and really find myself like with some alone time that's really been needed, especially for me this year.
That's great. What about you, Nicera? Do you think about what comes next? Because you know, on the eve of graduation, we see students and we say, you're graduating, what are you going to do now? But for athletes, it's like, no, really, what are you going to do now? You know, like, how does that loom on the horizon for you?
Well, like most freshmen when they come in, like when everyone would ask me that question, I'd be like, please, I don't even want to think about, you know, like I just got here, I don't want to think about that. But they're not lying when they say it, the time really flies. So now that it's here, I do think since transferring to Asheville, I have gotten a better outlook on like, just I am more than an athlete. Like I have more to offer to the world than just, you know, banging out my body all the time. You know, even though I do love it, it's, you know, what am I going to do after this ends? And when I do think about it, that's why I do like to do stuff on the side. Like I also do hair. Like I like picking up different things because I feel like there's, like, yes, this is our passion, but it may not be our purpose, you know? So I try to like just do stuff that's going to fulfill me to help me lead to my purpose. And Asheville just may be like a stop on that destination.
Yeah, well said. What about you, Greg? What do you think about looming?
To be honest, I think I'm going to thrive.
Yeah, Greg.
Honestly, I'm a very determined person, and when I set my mind to something, I go get it. That's just how I was raised. I was always, like, even in the classroom, there was certain expectations of me, and I've always been capable of meeting those expectations. I think that I was blessed with an ability to make relationships with people, all different types of people in different rooms. I think I have an ability to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And with what I want to do, I feel like working in the sports apparel and equipment industry, I have a passion for it, I have a knowledge for it, and I have a lot of experience with using sports equipment and things like that, and I just got to feel, I think I have a good fashion sense, and I'm honestly excited. I love basketball, and I want to get as many years out of my body as I can. I wasn't blessed with the health that some other people have, and I've already had to start thinking about my afterlife, after basketball. So I'm excited. I think I'll be all right. I hope.
That's good. That's awesome. What about you, Ron?
I think I'm a little less confident than Greg.
I think most of us are, actually.
I think that I'm excited too. I've tried to pick up a different hobby every year of college. Most of them my coaches would not like skateboarding and rock climbing, things that could definitely get me injured. So I think that I'm most excited about exploring that side of myself after volleyball. I really love my sport, but I've also been playing it since I was 10 years old and now I'm 22. So I think that I'm really excited to just see what the world has to offer and pick up on all those missed opportunities that I've had throughout the years.
That's great. Anna, what about you? This one you have to answer this one.
Yeah, darn. No, I think, since I have 2 more years left, but it's actually been kind of hard because, you have to think about in the next year, am I going to want to play after or not? And so you kind of have to prepare, if you aren't ready to play after, or if you're just completely done, or if you want to still play, then you have to, you find where you want to play, and that's so hard. And yeah, and then you're after that, what am I gonna do? So it's just a lot of preparation, and I think that's all something we've had to deal with, and not very many people understand that, and so I think it's important that they do.
I know you're interested in law school, and what you're saying kind of sounds like what a law student thinks first or second year. Where am I going to take the bar exam? I've got to start prepping for what classes I'm taking my third year based on where I'm going to take the bar exam. It's that long look ahead, so you're already primed for that.
Yeah, it's definitely scary.
Yeah. What about you, Con? What do you think about when you...
I was only speaking to my mom actually the other day about this because it's not something that I've thought about much. I'm sort of a person that takes things as they come, but it's a weird one for me as well because I sort of have to make the decision if I want to try and stay in the US or go back home. It's sort of one that's sort of hard to plan for because if I want to stay, it's a case that I have to go try and find a job that's in the route of what I graduate with my degree. But if I do that, then I won't be able to play soccer, and it's a toss-up of whether I want to keep playing or not. And a big part of me does. Now there's obviously some days where I think everyone has it where you're I don't want to go and play my sport, I don't want to go play soccer, I don't want to play basketball, but it's definitely something I want to stay involved in after. And before coming out here, I could have stayed at home and played semi-professional soccer at home and see where that had taken me, but I wanted to challenge myself and take the opportunity of coming over here and seeing what it was like. But I'm not exactly sure as to what I'm going to do yet because there's plenty of options at the moment, and then I'm sort of just waiting to see what comes closer to the time as well, if I have other options to play. And then it obviously depends on how well my next 2 seasons go as well, because if you have a really good season, there's more opportunities to arise in your sport, and if you don't, then they don't. So it's I haven't really thought too much about it. I guess my main focus is really just keep my head down and doing as well as I can here at the moment, and then seeing what comes.
Yeah. I appreciate your honesty on you said on the days that you think, I never want to play soccer again.
There's definitely been times where I have thought that, and I guess losing can do that to you as well, you know. There's been times where and not just here at home, I've been like, I don't want to do this anymore, but the people around you, your teammates every day, your coaches, when you walk in the door to the locker room each morning and you see these guys and everyone's turning up and they're there in the morning, some guys with a smile on their face, some guys not with a smile on their face, because I don't know, but it's just your teammates, and then getting the winning feeling is something that keeps you going every morning. And this year, especially so far, has been very good in terms of each day. I'm wanting to turn up and get better each day, and I want to keep building on what we've been doing. So
that's wonderful. But I hear you. I'm sure many of you have those days where you're like, no, I'm done. I met a woman, Peggy. Where are you? You said no. What? It wasn't you. It was somebody else. I heard a rumor that I was never going to write another novel. I was like, how do they know? How do they know? Somebody at Malaprop said, well, he said he's not writing any more novels. And I'm like, I didn't say that, but I have thought that. I know we might have some questions from the audience. We might have some questions coming up online. So if you have a few questions, I know these folks would love to hear them. But before I call on the folks from the audience, if you do have questions, and I hope you do, I want to close out with a question to each of you. John Thompson cites Malcolm X, civil rights leader, as a major influence on his thought in the novel, his thought and his style of leadership, especially in the way Malcolm X, these are Coach Thompson's words, was not apologetic or even accommodating. But Thompson does acknowledge that Malcolm X was willing and able to change and develop as a leader, especially after he left the Nation of Islam. Was very honest in his reflections on his own life and what he was believing and what he was asked to believe, and really evolved as a leader and as a thinker. And throughout his life, John Thompson very much evolved as a leader and as a thinker. And I could see him, he and Malcolm X, I recently read the biography of Malcolm X, The Dead Are Arising, which affected me to the same degree that this autobiography did. But is there someone who you look at as an example, either in your sport or where you think, that's a leader, that's somebody that I think I would like to model myself after? And I think we're kind of in a golden moment for athletics, for professional athletics. There are so many amazing models out there, from the NBA to women's soccer. There's just so many amazing models, and I'm just wondering who some of y'all's are. If anybody just wants to say maybe who it is and why, if you've got them. And maybe it's not an athlete, maybe it's somebody else.
My model would be probably my father. He did play basketball, like coming up. He played every sport, but he really just loved basketball and stuck to it. And he went to college for it, but he got his associate's degree. And afterwards, he started working. But he's been working with his the job that he's at. He's been working there for about 20 years or so. So whenever I talk to him about life after basketball, or just because I'll call him, tell him about practice, or I have to see film and just ask how I'm doing, and then I'll go home and train with him because he did play, so he's like my coach. But I'll ask him about life after basketball, or just how he kept himself going, because I know it can be discouraging to think wow, this chapter of my life or this era of my life is ending. What's after that? And he just really keeps me motivated because he's such a hustler. He works hard. He goes after everything that he wants. He supports his family, and in the process, he's trying to be a role model for his children. So I think that's another why I try to pick up so many things, or just try to take care of myself. Because I think one thing, regardless of basketball or not, I want to be able to take care of myself. I want to be able to, be a woman in this world and know that, even if I don't have anything, I have my intelligence, I have my degree, like, I have something going for myself, and I think my father really instilled that into me at a young age. And, my mother, of course, but my dad played basketball, so he knows on and off, and I think that just keeps me really motivated every single day. So.
That's so good to hear. Go Dads. Who else? Models.
I think for us as a soccer team, I think our coaches, you could say, I know Anna here spoke about her coach when she was younger, but I think our coach, for our team, our coaches here at Joe and Nick on the soccer team, and then Ronnie as well, but they're definitely role models for us each day, because the amount of hours that you don't see, but we also see every day that they put in and how much they care. I've been here three and a half years now, and I've lived through all the ups and downs that we've had so far, and with my coach Mick, and just how he turns up every day. And there's days where we don't, and our practice isn't good, but he's always there. Whether it's tough love or it's not, he's there for us, and he constantly reminds us that if he's being harsh on us, if he's getting on to us, it's not because he doesn't like us, or it's not because he doesn't think we're a good footballer. It's because he's trying to make us better. And what we're always talking about in our team is not just becoming better footballers, but becoming better men as well. And I think our coaches are perfect examples of that. And obviously, not everyone's perfect every day, but the two of them, when we're in training all the whole time, they're constantly on us, constantly trying to make us better, and whether it's on the pitch and off the pitch as well. Like, we do leadership podcasts where we'll listen to podcasts that will be sent out by our coaches, and we'll review them and listen to them and pick out things. And I think another big thing that I've sort of taken from my coach and him as a leader is that he's always welcome for feedback. And he's always welcome to speak to any player. His door is always open to go in and speak to him, whether it's about football, whether it's about anything in your personal life. And I've had plenty of things go on over here and at home that I haven't been able to deal with, but his door's always been open for me to go in and talk to. And I think, he's been, for me anyway, since moving over here, almost like a father figure, because I don't have my family since I moved over. I see them once a year when I go home, and then that's it. But it's a big reason why I'm still here. You spoke about the transfer portal earlier, and it's a sort of a thing where I was, after my sophomore year, we had a really terrible year, and it's like, do I transfer? Do I go somewhere else? But when you have a figure like our coach at the moment, who's there, who's constantly looking out for us, it makes you want to play for him. And that's one of the biggest things I think a leader can have, is having the collective around you wanting to work for you, wanting to play for you. And I think it wears off onto the rest of our team now, because we've got a group of leaders now where everyone's looking at each other, and if he's going to run, I'm going to run with him. So it's sort of been instilled from us from the very top, so that's who I'd say.
That's one thing that really, and the book impressed itself upon me, is that Coach Thompson talks about, not directly, but the players are there to play basketball, and the coach is obviously there to coach basketball, but the coach is also there to make sure you're okay, to make sure you're going to class, to make sure your mental health, which Mallory mentioned, is on point, is where it needs to be. And the coaches have a lot of pressure on them to feed and sustain all of those different parts of the student-athlete experience. So Thompson has a lot of stories about going to dorms in the middle of the night and showing up at people's parties and catching players doing things you're not supposed to do. Who else? Good models that stand out?
For me, I don't have like one pinpoint model. I just, God bless me, put people in my life that have just got through to me and got me to understand. I think people see us differently than we see ourselves sometimes. And I've just been blessed to have people around me that allow me to kind of see my gifts. So early on, as a basketball player or a football player, I was kind of bigger, stronger, faster, so my coaches kind of always wanted me to bring the rest of the guys along, you know, be very positive with them, talk them up, you know, just try to affect them in other ways, or, you know, bring them along. But as I got older, a lot of my coaches they kept just saying energy, like you just have real infectious energy, you know, you got a positivity to you, and you kind of need to bring that to the team. And I always used to just be like, why do I have to do it? You know, why do y'all put me in this role? Because, you know, there's some days that I don't have my own energy. You know, there's things that's going on in my personal life, or like Mallory said, I might be having a bad practice. I don't want to bring any more energy to anyone. I'm trying to, you know, get my own thoughts together. But I just, and even here, my coaches here, they stay on me about just recognizing my gift and allowing me to share that gift with all my teammates. And they're not the first coaches to tell me that I have that and I need to give that to other people. But honestly, it just goes into winning, and I realize that as time goes on that the more you pour into people, I think and especially in playing a team sport, the better off that your team is going to be. I think just being selfless and kind of caring about others, I think it'll all come full circle. Because, you know, the days that I might not have it, people notice that. They ask me, like, what is wrong? Like, you know, and there's people that come to me and pick me up on those days that I don't have as much energy. So yeah, I would just say there was just a collection of coaches, trainers, of course my parents, but outside of them and what they instilled in me, I just think that there was a lot of like youth coaches and even now that just, you know, poured into me and allowed me to, or helped me see different things about me that I didn't really notice.
What about you, Mallory? Any model come out to your mind?
My role model would be my trainer from back home. Her name's like Coach Marie. I just looked at her as like a role model, kind of. I could see me going like in this path of life, and she played college basketball and then also went overseas for like 3 to 4 years at like, I'm pretty sure 3 to 4 different places. So, and then she came back to where she was from in Greenville, and she ends up owning her own gym now that I of course train at and also work at. And it's just crazy to see how like far she's came, and she didn't really have her parents in her life as much as I do and have that support. So just seeing her really do all of that and just keep playing basketball, but then also just seeing her just help all the kids back at home and then just allowing me to also work at that gym now is just, it's a blessing. I love, like all the kids are like, oh, Mallory's home, and da-da-da-da. So I always go back there and visit and work out when I'm home. But just doing that and just seeing her like input all the stuff she did to me, to the little kids, but then also her teaching me to be able to do that also.
It's so nice to have a place to go back to. It's so nice. Ona or Anna?
I can go next. I think I kind of wanted to bounce off what Connor was saying about his coach. So for anybody that doesn't know, the volleyball team got a new coach this year, lots of new players. I think we had 11 returners and like 20 something new people. So it's like a big dynamic shift. And I think that all of us were pretty hesitant last year just because that is such a large change. And, you know, as an athlete, like you're nervous, you're like, can I keep my scholarship? Is the team gonna start winning? Like what kind of changes are gonna be implemented? Is this new coach going to still have the same values that I came here to follow? You know, like is she gonna respect academics? Is she gonna let me follow my dreams? You know? And so I think that when Coach Haber got here, some of the policies that she started implementing were things that I'd never even thought of before, but that made so much sense. So like, she makes all of our athletes sit front and center in all of their classes, and we are required to like greet and say goodbye to our professors every day. And we are required to do 6 hours of study hall, no matter what your GPA or your class is. And there's no, like, we do team chores, and in the past it's always been a freshman job, and now it's a whole team job. So I think just her style of leading and her style of treating the starters the exact same way that she would treat a freshman who's never going to see the court, that's had a lot of impact on me this year as a senior, and as a senior captain. So I think that her style of leadership and also her style of training, like this is the hardest I've ever trained, but it's also the most successful I've seen this program since I've been here. So I think that's helped lead me a lot this year in my sports.
That's great. Anna, what about you?
I don't know if I have a specific one, but I do know that players like on the women's national team, and I know that Trevor Lawrence, I think, said something about humility one time, and that really like stuck with me because I think it gets lost a lot of times, and especially in Division I athletics when you're at the top, so you think you're the best, and but that has really stuck with me throughout my college career personally, and but other than that, I would also have to agree with Greg. Like, there's just been a collection of people that know me better than I know myself sometimes, which helps a lot of the times. But I think that's what makes my team so special this year is because, you know, like as a captain, I'm gonna have off days, and you know, hopefully they come few, but there's gonna be those days, and I think that my teammates are able to lift me up, and so that's really promising.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Anybody in the audience have any questions? Or Kevin, if any questions came over online? Maren, go ahead.
This isn't a question. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows something that impresses me at least, and that is that the athletic GPA at UNCA is higher than the average GPA. So the athletes are doing better than the non-athletes.
Yeah, what Merritt said, it's something that to keep in mind is that the athletic GPA at UNC Asheville is higher than the all-student GPA, which is something we're very proud of, and something we're very proud of you all for. Yeah, Richard.
Yeah, I have a question about nutrition. And I don't know if you all have a training table that during your sport, you know, you have your evening meal together as a team, or whether you don't have that here. But, you know, there's been a lot of information and new information about the importance of nutrition if you're going to be successful athletically. And just kind of curious what you all do for that, or how important that is, or if you make time for it, you make conscious decisions about what you're eating and so forth.
Richard's question was about nutrition, especially dining together and maybe some scientific advances in nutrition. Does anybody want to tackle that question?
I can. I guess as a college athlete, it can be difficult sometimes with nutrition-wise. Our cafeteria on campus, though, they do help out a lot. The options that they have for us as student athletes as well, when you're going in there, is plentiful. There's always very nutritious food for you to eat, but it can be difficult because I know there's some days where, for myself even, that I may not even get to eat until later on in the afternoon because you're up so early, you're going to training, you're going to lift, you're doing film, then you've got maybe a class and then another class after that, and you maybe only have the snack here and there, but it's definitely, like, during pre-season we do eat together a lot as a team, but after that then, like during the season, everyone has their own different schedules, everyone's on different time, it's you can't really come together as a group to eat, but it's definitely a massive thing, and I even notice it in myself sometimes where I go through maybe a week or two where I'm eating things that I'm not supposed to be eating all the whole time, and it can have an effect on you on your performance. But like as a college athlete, I know everyone does their best to eat as well as they can, but it is quite difficult to, I guess, meet the level that like professional athletes would, or maybe the top Division I schools that do. As I know in soccer, there's some Division I schools where they'll walk in the morning and these certain players have certain supplements that they're given to them based on their body composition and stuff. But we always say, you just got to be grateful for what you have, and it is a big focus, and there's a lot more focus coming onto it. But you try your best to follow as best you can, but there are also these times where, like myself, I have a bit of a sweet tooth, so I do like to indulge on donuts and chocolate. So.
Anyone else? Anybody have any nutritional secrets, Mallory?
This kind of happened to me. I kind of had to deal with a lot with the nutrition side, but my freshman year, I don't know if I was this big or I wasn't, but I've lost like 25, 30 pounds from my freshman year to this year. So I definitely had to make some changes. My freshman year, I definitely had the 15 and probably some more. It was just, young, eating out. I knew how to cook. I just would eat a lot of snacking, but not necessarily good things. I loved Sam's Club for a minute. It was really bad. But no, I really had to make a lot of changes. Then also not eating, which actually made me gain weight some. It just wasn't good. So just planning out your meals. I like make my lunch or just plan my schedule around where I do have to eat. And then also our coaches make sure that we have eating on our schedule if people struggle with that. So yeah, cooking meals, meal prep has been really good for me. And then now I'm kind of at a point where I can, have a sweet tooth every now and then, and it really doesn't affect me on the court, but yeah.
Anybody else? Greg?
Yeah, I would just say, because I've seen both ends of the spectrum. Like Connor said, I was fortunate to, be in certain places. So like at NC State, we had a nutritionist. Here, I don't know like what the budget is and things like that, but there's people here that can give us nutrition advice, and our coaches stay on guys, because some guys are weight gain guys, some guys like me, I'm coming off of surgery and I gained probably about 20 pounds, and I'm in the process of getting that off me, and I'm doing very well with that. But it just varies. We had a training table at NC State. After every practice, we would have a meal, or say we didn't have practice and we had 2 workouts to lift. In a workout, they can only feed us after one workout. So I guess it was just varied depending on the days, but we might have breakfast after a morning lift. But at NC State, we had something called a red card, where there was different places in the city that we can go, and they had basically an affiliation with NC State. We can use our red card money to eat at those places. But here, they do their best, and some guys get Pell Grant money, which they can use that to go grocery shopping and eat like that, and you might have to cook a little bit more. But it definitely just depends on the person. Like I'm in the process of losing weight, so I'm trying to cut carbs on my diet. I've just been eating protein and vegetables and fruit, and 2 weeks I've already lost 13 pounds. So I just think it definitely just depends on the person from a nutritional standpoint.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Coach Thompson, in his book, I think from both his experience as a player and also as a coach, said that there was oftentimes a lot of pressure on college athletes like y'all that are in a great position, pressure to be a role model to those that, and younger than you. And I wonder if y'all have felt that pressure, and if, say, in your extended families or your communities, when you go back, have you experienced that as people looking up to you as a role model?
Pressures, he asked about pressures to be a role model, either in your community or here in Asheville. Does anybody want to answer that? Yeah, Mallory. Oh, nice, Sarah.
Yes, I would say there are a lot of pressures that come with being a D1 student athlete. I know for myself, I come from a kind of tight community, like the neighborhood I grew up in. We kind of all grew up together, and even though we went our separate ways, like everyone still, keeps up on social media. So it gets kind of hard because, friends grow up. I just recently had, a friend pass, but, and it was hard because I wanted to go home so bad, to see the family, see the community, but, I'm 7 hours away, and, I always don't have the money or financials to do that stuff. So just getting on the phone with the people from back home, and, they get to tell me, we're still proud of you, we talk about you all the time, even though we don't know, it gives you a lot of motivation, because sometimes I might think of it as pressure, but really it's like, there's people that got your back. Like, it may seem like pressure a little bit, and it is, but it's also like motivation. People backing you up. People are there supporting you, even when it's super hard and I want to go home and I'm just like, oh, I just miss my family. That pressure still keeps me going. It drives me, because I just know that, my coach said something the other day, like, made up neighborhood. I just know that that's how they see me, like, and I said, so it just makes me walk around with my head high, shoulders up, like, I have people that are backing me and I want to make them proud, as well as myself, so.
Yeah, I think that when you are a student athlete, the thing that you constantly have in your mind is like the world is watching and you represent more than just yourself. So on social media, in the classroom, out in the community, like constantly I'm wearing UNC Asheville gear. I have UNC Asheville in my Instagram bio. So just like everything I post, everything I do is a representation of not just myself, but of the school, of my team, of my coaches. And so I think that that carries a certain level of pressure to it, but I don't think that, I think that it's a source of pride too. Like you work really hard as a student athlete, so you want to represent yourself well. And then of course, like with the camps that we do over the summer, it's awesome to be able to see little girls growing up and know that I was in their shoes. I went to the same camps and like to be able to tell them like, oh yeah, like I played for BBA and see their eyes kind of like light up because like I got to where I am. And I started in the same place as them, so I think that's a really cool responsibility.
There is definitely plenty, like a situation, even myself, I'd gone home there at Christmas, just gone, and I just speak to my friends on the phone or whatever, but I had ended up one night speaking to a couple of my friends, and they all were saying to me like, we're constantly following you, constantly, you were the one that got out of here and got to go somewhere else, and we're expecting so much from you, we're expecting this, and that kind of made me realize a little bit that there's a lot of people who are looking in from the outside and are not just hoping but expecting you to do well, and I think that's one sort of pressure that you can put on yourself from, I guess, outside of people. There was a lot of pressure put on me from my mom growing up as well. She held me to a very high standard, and whether that was on the soccer field or whether it was in the classroom, that sort of pressure comes. But then this semester as well, I like to remind my teammates that different sort of pressure can be a privilege. Putting yourself in, we're going to be in situations this year where we're going to be playing in big games, and you want to be playing in big games, and there's pressure on you in that, and you'd much rather have pressure on you playing in a big game than losing all your games throughout the year and no one has to worry about us losing or winning so the way I sort of look at it these days is that pressure is sort of a privilege for me. It means that I'm in a position where I can make something happen, create a memory for people around me, and also give back to the people that are supporting me. So I know this year we had a lot of expectations on our team to do really well, and I think people at the school, from what we recruited and our coaches, all had a lot of expectations of us, but I think as an athlete and as a team, it's something that you need to have on you. It's just that little bit of pressure, but I think you just need to embrace it. If you can embrace the pressure as much as you possibly can, I think it can bring you on to another level, but I think it's always a good thing to have a little bit of pressure on you because it can bring out better things. So.
Just have one thing. I think it's important to also balance that pressure out a little bit, because it's even a role model, needs their role model. So, like, there's been a couple days as like a captain that I'm like, oh my god, like I don't want to be a role model anymore. But I think it's important to know like what you're building and the future that you're gonna create for your teammates, and like as everyone said, like going home is just kind of like a refresh of everyone that believes in you, and coming back you're just like you're ready to be a role model again. So I think it's just important.
Kevin, do we have any maybe one from online?
We do. We have one question. How did they find themselves having to adapt as students and athletes when COVID hit?
How did y'all adapt as students and athletes when COVID hit? That was your first year here, Connor, you were saying, but maybe some of the others, how did you adapt?
For me, it was challenging because I've always been a pretty good student, but I needed to be in a learning environment. I do better when I'm physically in a classroom and I can engage with the teacher and kind of have dialogue with your classmates and stuff. But when you're at home for me, I didn't really have a home to come back to during COVID, because I did lose my mother my freshman year, so I was living with a close friend. And his schedule might be different from mine, so I might just be in classroom in the living room and he might be blasting music or something like that, or there's a lot of stuff going on while I'm in class. So for me, it was just new and challenging, and it took me a lot to get used to. And honestly, like if I'm being truthful, I would take advantage of it a little bit because say I had 8 a.m. and I was tired, I might just wake up, turn the laptop on Zoom, and then fall right back to sleep. So I felt like that I wasn't getting the most out of my education when COVID did start, but it just became our new normal. So we just had to adapt to it, and I'm better with it now. I don't even have any online classes anymore, but I just think it was just you had to adapt to it. Some people liked it, some people did.
Anna?
Yeah, I can go. So COVID was my junior year of high school. So I wasn't committed yet to a college. So that was very hard because you were like, I had an offer from UNC Asheville, but I also could have the opportunity to go different places, but then they obviously shut everything down, and so I wasn't able to go out and experience other places. But I was lucky enough to come the fall before COVID to visit UNC Asheville, and so I committed a couple days after COVID started to UNCA, and I think that I'm very fortunate to be at a place that I'm just certain about, and I think a lot of players probably got stuck and were just like, what am I gonna do? And I think a lot of them didn't commit to a college because they didn't know where to go at that point.
Because I didn't think about that. I mean, COVID not only disrupting the classroom and disrupting games, of course it disrupted recruiting. Of course people got left behind. I mean, that makes total sense. People got lost in the shuffle. Ona, you're gonna say?
Yeah, I was gonna say that COVID just made me incredibly grateful that I did choose to stay at Asheville. Because I remember my friends at Chapel Hill got sent home, my friends at NC State got sent home, and then we were able to continue. I had an in-person class my freshman year, and my freshman year was in 2020. And it was obviously really hard to adapt. The athletes got COVID tested every single Tuesday morning at 6 a.m. We were getting swabbed, and then we had to wear masks in practice, so it was really difficult to breathe. And then as a freshman, we had to practice on a different court than the upperclassmen who lived off campus. It's just in case there was a COVID outbreak on campus. We didn't really understand the disease back then, but it was very isolating. I lived in a different dorm hall than the 4 other freshmen from my class, and so I did not interact with them very much. I didn't interact with the upperclassmen very much, so I think it was a really isolating experience, and it's taken a few years to get back into what is the team supposed to feel like, how is volleyball supposed to feel like, and I think this year is the first year that I felt truly back in the sport. So.
Yeah, what you just said, people being sent home from other universities, to brag on UNCA once again, we have the lowest infection rates of any of the 16 campuses in the North Carolina system. So, we really did our part here as students, faculty, staff, administration, keeping people as safe as possible. And so, we were masked, but life was, other than that, it was kind of somewhat normal as it could be. Connor?
If I'm being honest, I really didn't like that first year with COVID. It caused so much that I had to get my visa. It became a lot more difficult to come over. I had already got my visa, my flight was booked, everything to come over, and then our season was cancelled, so I was expecting to go into a season, and then that was cancelled, and I ended up coming over, I think it was a week after school started. So my first ever class at UNCA was in my bedroom at home in Ireland. I think it was a 2 o'clock class over here, and it was 7 o'clock at home. I was taking my first class, and I met all my teammates for the first time over Zoom, and we had the thing we would do would be a freshman story. I had to tell them a pretty embarrassing story about myself to all my teammates over Zoom. So there were a load of American lads who I'd never met in my life. So that was quite interesting. I ended up winning the story, though, to be fair, out of all the freshmen. So I was quite happy with that. But being here was my first. I remember the first thing that I had to do coming over. I got picked up from the airport and got dropped off here, and I had to stay. I think it was in Governor's Hall I was meant to quarantine for 2 weeks by myself before I was meant to go into training. And that was something that I was struggling to come to terms with. But I got in here like at like 8:30 at night, and obviously I wasn't able to interact with anyone or anything like that. I had to be quarantined, and I obviously had nothing as well. I had some clothes, so I ended up sleeping with the thing you put around your neck on an airplane and a flag. I ended up sleeping on a dorm bed with one of them around my neck and that on a flag when I first came over. So everything was a bit all over the place with it for me. But thankfully they cancelled the quarantine, so I didn't have to do that, and I got to meet all my teammates and my 3 roommates my freshman year, who made everything a lot easier. But it was definitely a big shock for me, because I came from somewhere as well where COVID was being treated quite seriously, but nothing to the level that it was here, where I was constantly having to wear a mask everywhere I go. And as well as that, like as a student athlete, it was a case of there was always eyes on you as well during COVID. So if you wanted to do any sort of socializing, or if you wanted to maybe not wear a mask outside, it was always, oh yeah, there's a soccer team there, they're not staying to the rules, they're not sticking. And that was all very overwhelming. And then on top of that, it was very hard to meet new people, because there was next to no one on campus besides really student athletes for the most part. And then if you did meet anyone, it was with half their face covered. So it was, I didn't really start meeting too many people until my sophomore year, until everything started calming down and stuff. But it was definitely very difficult for a lot of reasons. So.
Were you thinking about all your buddies back in Ireland, back in Dublin, who were like, man, Connor, you made it. You're like, here I am sleeping under a flag with a neck pillow. Like, if this is making it, I gotta come home.
It was certainly a weird experience first coming in.
Well, I think we're gonna wrap. I want to thank all of you so much. Nicera Menace from women's basketball, Mallory Bruce from women's basketball, Will Kent from women's basketball, Ona Elkins from volleyball, and Adone from women's soccer, and Connor Mahan from men's soccer. You know, when I plan these events, I always have an idea of what I want them to be, and this one was exactly what I hoped it would be. So thank you all for making what I hoped would be a great evening, a great evening. And this has been streaming, and it'll be available on YouTube as well. And I'm going to send an all-faculty email, because all of our faculty needs to see this discussion. And I want to make sure that they have the opportunity to. So thank you all so much for making it happen. Thank you all so much for being with us. I hope you come back on October 26th. For Dr. Adam Rothman and his discussion on the 272, and I hope to see you then. Thank you so much.